Hi Dragonflies, welcome back to Dragonfly Spirit Studio. I'm Lynn Bauer. This is a follow-up video to the first project in my online watercolor skies and clouds workshop, but you don't have to have done that project to use this video. In this video, I'm going to talk about some of the common challenges that you might face in painting skies and clouds in watercolor so that you can evaluate and edit your reference photos and maybe take better reference photos to help set yourself up for success when you're painting skies and clouds in watercolor. So just for fun, let's start by taking a look at some of the photos that are representative of the kind of thing that people show up with in a workshop for painting watercolor skies and clouds. Oh yeah, I aspire to paint all of that too, and I don't mean to discourage you from aspiring to paint scenes like that, and in the course we will start developing some of the skills that we would need to paint watercolor skies and clouds like that, but maybe not all in the same first painting that we attempt. So my goal is always to try to just have one difficulty at a time to deal with. So in this video, I want to talk to you about where the challenges are so that you can edit your own reference photos and also design your paintings to acquire those skills one or two at a time instead of being overwhelmed by having all of them in the same painting. These two photos have a rapid soft transition between complements or near complements. Soft transitions that occur over a short distance between colors that are complements or near complements, such as the orange and the bluish gray here, or the red-orange and the turquoise. When you're working wet and wet, it's both difficult to control the distance over which the colors are moving and the amount of mingling that occurs between them, and if they mingle too much, you may wind up with grays or browns in your sky that you didn't want. Even if the colors are not near complements, making a rapid short distance transition in a soft edge shape and keeping the shape precise can be difficult. So if you want to confine the sunset to a narrow band, or you're trying to confine your color change to the band in a rainbow, that's quite a challenge. Something that often attracts us to skyscapes is a sharp value contrast, high highlights, dramatic lighting, and again, you're trying to make a rapid transition in a soft-edged area, and controlling that and keeping that sense of brilliant light can be a challenge. So anything where you're shooting directly into the sun is often difficult. The photo on the left here also has that dramatic lighting issue, but aside from that, there's a challenging area here underneath the clouds where capturing that subtle lighting and getting the values exactly right is quite a challenge. In the photo on the right, there's a pale band of almost white that drifts through the center of those clouds, and capturing an effect like that is also quite challenging. Another thing that's often quite attractive in skies but also quite challenging is when you have multiple layers of clouds of different types and different shapes and moving possibly in different directions, and then maybe even of different colors. So how do we get from where we are now to being able to tackle something like this? I like to set myself up for success in my paintings by giving myself just one or at very most two new challenges to tackle in an individual painting. In Project 1, you already saw the basics of some of the techniques that we'll use to tackle some of these challenges. We used glazing and only one color at a time to help control where color transitions occurred. In Project 1, that was over a large area, but we will be able to do the same sort of thing over smaller areas. And then right at that top of the water where we softened that edge to go underneath the tree line, that's also a technique that we'll be able to use to help us with some of these challenges. As we go through the course, we'll begin with simple skies and then add some complexity and then even more complexity to build our skills step by step. As you're designing paintings of your own, I encourage you to use the same philosophy. Keep in mind, too, that the more complex the sky, the larger you will want to work. The effects that occur wet in wet are the result of the water and the paint moving by gravity and capillary action. That occurs at its own scale, and you can only change the scale somewhat. So something as complicated as this is going to require a larger sheet of paper to capture in watercolor wet in wet effects. So here are a few tips to keep in mind to help you design your paintings so that you can acquire those skills a little at a time and still have very successful and satisfying paintings. Make use of simple silhouette paintings to practice laying graduated washes and play with color combinations, where you have simply a graduated wash in the background and the foreground is more or less just a silhouette with little detail. Although this little postcard-sized painting isn't very sophisticated, it's an exercise from our beginner course, you can use this same technique to produce paintings that are quite satisfying. When you begin working on trying to capture cloud shapes, it helps to work with reference photos where the clouds are mostly one color or one value. Again, simplicity of color and value doesn't have to mean a boring painting. If your reference photo is complex, you might consider cropping in to a smaller area that still captures the mood you'd like to evoke in your painting. A sky like this, that captures the colors right near the horizon, can actually be very effective in conveying a sense of place. In this example, I actually noticed as I was taking the photo the complexity of the sky, and I was able to walk a little farther down the road to capture a small interesting section of the sky without the tree in front of it. This small nocturne sketch was captured the same evening, and as you can see, sometimes a very simple sky is exactly what the painting needs. When shooting towards a sun, at sunrise or sunset, it's difficult to capture both the color in the sky and enough detail in the foreground. One way to do this is to shoot multiple exposures. If you underexpose slightly, you'll capture more color in the sky. If you overexpose slightly, you'll capture more foreground features. If you don't know how to change the exposures on your camera or it's not possible, shoot one photograph that is almost entirely sky and one that is almost entirely foreground, and your camera will do some of that exposure changing for you. Finally, keep in mind that each one of your reference photos may contain multiple skies within it. Designing paintings using only a portion of your reference photo not only gives you more material to work with from each photo, it also lets you figure out how you're going to tackle each of the challenges in the larger painting individually. So you have a good chance of success both with the smaller paintings and with the larger painting when you're ready to tackle it. Some forethought and editing in choosing your references for your watercolor skies and clouds paintings can help set you up for more successful paintings, a lot less frustration, and a lot more fun.